Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Here in season 3 of Black Ops 6 multiplayer, we've got a pretty interesting meta shakeup, primarily because of all of the new season 3 weapons and conversion kits that we've got available already, but also we of course saw several new updates, buffs, and nerfs to various different meta weapons. And so today I wanted to go through and break down the new top 10 best multiplayer class setups to be running for this season. And we are starting first with one of my favorite weapons in the game right now, the XM4. We'll actually switch over our face cam so we can get the full stat details as we go through with attachments. But the XM4, so straightforward. It is as reliable as it gets. Low recoil, good range, good damage, pretty versatile as well, even with this setup here, which is more so meant for a ranged based, style of play here. But first up, for the optic, it's simply a matter of preference. If you like more zoomed in, like a 2 to 3 times, you could go for it. For multiplayer though, typically a lower zoom optic, I'm a big fan of, like the Kepler Microflex and Otero, reflex or something like that. Volsky can be really good as well. But if there's a certain scope you love, go ahead, run that. You're all set there. Base compensator here, going to help out with that vertical recoil control, just making the weapon a whole lot easier to use. So that's obviously pretty straightforward. Ranger foregrip helps out with some with horizontal control, so again makes the weapon even more predictable. Plus we get some sprinting movement speed back from that as well, so it's going to be more aggressive and versatile. Balanced stock, helping out with base movement speed, strafe speed. You really notice when you throw this on there, you're able to break ankles a little bit more in gunfights because of that. And then also recoil springs, more free recoil control. So this thing is going to be a laser beam. It's going to melt players and it's going to be really aggressive while doing so it's checking all the right boxes. Next up, we of course got to talk about one of our new season 3 weapons, the Kilo. This thing feels fantastic. It like the XM4 is incredibly easy to use, especially with this build on here, which makes it feel very laser beam-esque as well. Good range, good versatility, really good damage overall too. So big fan of this. It feels weird to be using a Kilo in a Black Ops multiplayer, but hey, that's where we're at right now. Yet again, going for the Kepler Microflex, kind of my optic of choice for multiplayer in most scenarios, right? Here I go for the long barrel. You can keep in mind, I'm only level 19 on this weapon because you don't really have to max it out to get an optimal setup. Now, reinforced obviously would always be ideal too, that you get that at 33, so even then that's not too shabby, but a meta loadout pretty early on into a weapon leveling grind is solid here. Long barrel feels really good in MP for me specifically. Vertical foregrip, again, helping out with that horizontal recoil control. And for whatever reason on the new guns, it says it adds recoil stabilization. We'll have to go through and like fully test and see if that's actually factoring in anything different than the usual vertical foregrip pros, but nonetheless makes the weapon easier to use. I really like quick draw grip after this update as well. I mean, obviously just being more snappy and aggressive here. After you level it more, you can also switch on over to the ergonomic grip, but get a better slide to fire and dive to fire speed too. But just for the faster ADS in and of itself, quick draw is fantastic. And then personally, I like to go even more in on control. Recoil springs will do a tad bit more than the compensator since it's doing horizontal and vertical, so that feels fantastic there. If you're looking for more mobility, or if you're running gunfighter or something, you could throw on a balanced stock for even better strafe and movement, just like on the XM4, right? You could throw on a compensator if you want, a monolithic if you want to stay off the radar, right? A lot of ways to build the Kilo. All of them are going to feel good. The AMES is another fantastic rifle for multiplayer. It's one of my favorites in the game just in general, just because it's so aggressive, it's so easy, and it feels like it melts constantly. I could play on Nuketown or, Babylon or Stakeout with this thing, or I can play on some of the larger maps too and still feel like I'm going to be set no matter what, just because this thing is so versatile, right? Here again, surprise, surprise, still rocking the Kepler Microflex, right? Compensator, straight up better vertical control, makes the weapon real easy. Vertical makes it even more predictable with the horizontal control benefits. I do run extended mag 1 here, typically in multiplayer, just with the TTK. You don't need extended mags. The rate of fire being a tad bit faster here though, I just feel extra comfortable running a 45. It's not going to slow me down really, and I'm not worried about having to stop and reload in the middle of pushing a team or going into a spawn point or something, right? So this just feels like that added safety net that is really convenient. And then I like ergonomic on here for the slide to fire. The better ADS just makes this weapon a lot more aggressive as well. I slide cancel a ton in my gameplay, and that's going to help out a lot with that. So really one of my absolute favorite guns in all of Black Ops 6 right now. The AMES just feels phenomenal. We also of course have to talk about the AMAX. This thing rips. I especially am surprised at how much I like an iron sight build on this gun here in multiplayer, just because obviously so many of your fights are like mid-range or closer because of how the BO6 maps play. This thing you can get by with using irons. They're pretty clean, honestly, and with this setup focusing on recoil, it's gonna feel so good. Like, this thing is a ton of fun to run around with. So first up, compensator, yet again, which also adds in the weird visual stabilization or recoil stabilization. So not sure why they changed these attachments for the new guns, but nonetheless, it's there. Reinforced barrel in this case, some range, some velocity, helping out there. 30-meter effective damage range is great. 812 velo is going to be fine for all the maps on this game. Vertical foregrip again, helping out that horizontal recoil there. Base 30-round mag works fine in this case with this rate of fire, so we don't have to worry about that. Balanced stock for all the better movement benefits, of course. And then recoil springs. The AMAX does have a bit more recoil than some other options here, so stacking recoil strings, vertical foregrip, and then compensator. This thing, it's like the lowest recoil build you can have for this gun. It's going to feel so good. Going to be really straightforward after you get used to the recoil pattern and you're all set there. And then you're just going to melt every single lobby until skill-based matchmaking kicks in. Then good luck. And by the way, as we are breaking down all the weapons and class setups here today, if you enjoy the video, you find the info helpful, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, you want to guarantee that every single day you're in the know for everything going on in COD, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and help us get one step closer to reaching 1 million subscribers. Now, it's not all rifles that are fantastic in BO6 multiplayer, although it's mostly rifles. We got a couple of solid SMGs, including the Kompakt, which just melts in multiplayer. Crazy fast TTK, especially for more aggressive gameplay. If you're running and gun and playing a lot of the small maps, this thing is going to be a beast. Pretty similar setup to what I'd run over in Warzone, honestly. Compensator here helping out the recoil. This thing does have a bit of kick because you're just shooting bullets so fast, so that helps out a lot. Ranger foregrip helping out as well with that horizontal control, plus some sprinting movement speed is solid. I do use extended 2 in this case, gives me a 50-round extended mag. With this rate of fire being 1091, yeah, you burn through ammo. Quite frankly, even with 40 at times, I feel like I'm reloading too much as I'm pushing a spawn or going into a choke point, going after a flag or a hard point. So 50, those 10 extra bullets, they do help out a lot. I'm a big fan of that. Ergonomic rear grip for the slide to fire, the better ADS on there. And then also recoil springs yet again for the added control, just making me even more accurate with this thing. You hit shots with this, no one's going to stand a chance. It's going to melt right through them. Next up, although it's not as practical for multiplayer, it's definitely more so a Warzone gun. The HDR, it's a new weapon. I want to make sure we talk about it in our top 10 for the season, of course, as I always do with the new weapons. It's difficult though because Black Ops 6 plays so fast. This is a heavier sniper, even with some speed-based attachments on it. So you really got to play smart with this thing. There's a lot of times if you try and play aggressive, you're just going to get fried by one of those aforementioned rifles or SMGs, right? But for a multiplayer setup, again, you don't even have to max level to get an ideal build here. I like the gain twist barrel outright. Like the range here is already so good, you do not have to worry about that at all. But upping that velo is obviously going to be helpful for the better hit scan like feel in pretty much every fight you can get into with this thing. Lightweight bipod is nice because it helps out the aiming idle sway when you are ADSing there. Obviously, the less sway you have on the sniper, the better. So I do like the feel of that. Fast mag 2 is very important for me here. Yes, you get less ammo, so you're going to have to reload more, but you're reloading faster, and this helps out a ton with the ADS speed, making that a tad bit faster. We stack quick draw rear grip on that for an even faster ADS, and we're down to a 415, which is almost approaching car territory, like for Warzone, right? So definitely going to help out a lot with making this feel like a more aggressive sniper. And then quite frankly, just depending on what level you're at on your gun as you're going through and ranking up, I think the light stock is solid here, helping out like the general movement, just makes it feel a tad bit more aggressive. Balanced stock is always good for that as well, but also rapid fire. I think this could be pretty solid. It's hurting your velocity a tad bit, but because we are using gain twist on there, obviously that helps sort of counter that. Plus you get that better fire rate, so you can get those shots off quicker back to back to back if you're not getting a one-shot kill or you're trying to go for a feed or something, right? So I think that's a viable alternative too. But yeah, HDR, a little bit awkward for multiplayer, but if you're interested in using it, that's what I'd be running. Hey everyone, real quick, wanted to give a shout out to my friends over at G Fuel. If you are returning here for Verdansk, if you're diving into some nostalgic gameplay, a crucial part of your loadout here has to be some G Fuel. There is no better option for staying hydrated, focused, and energized than G Fuel, and they got you covered with a ton of different flavors. My absolute favorite as of late for energy have been Hype Sauce, Watermelon Limeade, and then also the new Drop Shot Citrus flavor. So good. If you want to get anything at all from the G Fuel site though, whether it be some tubs, some hydration formula, whatever the case is, code Immortal has you covered with a nice discount at checkout. Link for that will be down in the description below if you're interested. Next up, another option I'm really enjoying is the AEK full auto mod. This thing takes what is a truly mediocre weapon in the AEK. Remember, it was so good in the preseason and they hard nerfed it, but turns a weapon that no one's really using into a great option here, especially for multiplayer. I mean, this thing, it has an insane fire rate, like you burn through ammo with it. So the multiplayer setup's a little bit odd, but it also melts at the same time, right? Optic, again, really a matter of preference. Jason Armory 2 times is solid, a Volsky Reflex, Turo Red Dot, whatever the case is, run whatever you're comfortable with. Definitely want the compensator on here. This thing has a lot of vertical recoil, so this is going to help out counter that some. If you want to make it like basically exclusively vertical, there's not going to be any deviation. Vertical foregrip's going to counter the rest. That Ranger would also be practical here too, just because there's not a ton of horizontal bounce on this thing. I do use the extended mag here for multiplayer just because the fire rate's so crazy. 896 feels like you're burning through ammo on a 30 rounder, so getting 45 helps out a ton. Then obviously we're using the full auto mod attachment on there too. So this thing definitely is a ton of fun. This is one of my favorite conversion kits in the game. And speaking of conversion kits, the GRAU also feels really good here in multiplayer. It's not the classic GRAU iron sights, but it gets the job done for sure. They're not bad iron sights by any means, but throwing on the GRAU conversion kit makes the SWAT 556 a very fun weapon to use, very nostalgic. And as you guys know, if you're active viewers on the channel, GRAU is my all-time favorite gun. So to be able to have a close, replica to it, I'm all for. So we got the GRAU conversion on there. Compensator helping out with that control. Vertical foregrip doing more of the same. So making the gun as predictable as possible. Quick draw rear grip for that snappy, fast ADS. If you want to switch on over to ergonomic, you're playing a bit more aggressive, doing a lot of slide canceling, that'd be a viable option as well. And then personally, I like balanced stock on here too for the better strafe and better base general movement. Don't really need the extended mag here in multiplayer. If you wanted to upgrade to that, you could. If you're running gunfighter or something, that'd be viable. Definitely aren't running an optic. We're not ruining those iron sights. No real need for a laser there. So 5 attachments gets the job done here. I wish you could mess around at the barrels, but alas, it does block those. Regardless, GRAU is a ton of fun. Next up, a weapon that actually got a solid buff with season 3, the DM10. Bit of a higher skill gap because it is semi-auto, so it's higher risk, higher reward, but this thing can melt if you're able to land shots consistently. Really a weapon that I think is slept on because it is that higher skill gap. It's that higher skill entry barrier, if you will. But after the buff, this thing's damage goes crazy. So here, gotta use an optic. I'm not a fan of the irons. Kepler Microflex for me personally, or not a fan of like the base scope or whatever. You could try out the iron sight optic and attachment if you want. Does actually give you some better ADS speed, which is interesting, but really again, just a matter of preference, right? Compensator on here. Obviously when you're spamming it, you're gonna have that vertical bounce, so that's gonna help out a lot. Because it is semi-auto, lightweight handguard for the better idle sway can help out a lot here as well for what it's worth, so I'm a fan of that there. Because you can also spam it decently quick, like 333 RPM doesn't sound that fast, but when you're spamming it as fast as you can, having some extra ammo on a semi-auto gun is always a nice safety net. So I just go for extended one here, just 25 rounds, certainly a nice little advantageous bonus we've got there. Then buffer weight stock's available on this too. Typically you see this on the XM4, but it is an option on the DM10. Why not get some solid recoil control so you can spray and pray and not have to worry about being too inaccurate, right? So takes some getting used to for sure, but the DM10 is actually really, really solid. And then lastly, here to close us out, the KSV, another fantastic SMG that's extremely versatile here in multiplayer. You could use it in the mid-range. Obviously, it's going to be great in the close range as well. One of my more reliable options here if I'm looking to change things up and try out a new sub. Kepler Microflex, the irons aren't too terrible here, so if you wanted to swap that out for a compensator, go for it. But if you feel more comfortable with a Kepler, that's fine as well, or any other optic for that matter. Long barrel extending out our damage range to almost 18 meters, really solid. Velocity is going to be fine for all your fights here in MP. Ranger foregrip, horizontal control, sprinting movement speed, of course. Then we double up on movement to round things out. Ergonomic rear grip for the ADS, slide to fire benefits, balance stock for the movement and the strafe benefits there. So this thing is quick, it's aggressive, it's going to kill very quick as well. Big fan of the KSV. And that being said, those are the new top 10 best weapons and class setups to be running here in Black Ops 6 multiplayer. If you guys enjoyed the video, a like rating is always seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to hit that subscribe button on your way out so you can always stay in the know for everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.